Why do we learn? What do we learn? And how do we apply what we learn in the real world? These were some of the questions I wanted to answer when I started this podcast. I've always been curious about how people acquire skills in different professions. And today, to throw some light on some of these questions, I get to interview Piyushkumar Jain. So, Piyush is someone that I interacted with a really long time ago. I think it's been almost a decade since we last met and spoke. But he's someone I've admired from a distance for a long time for how he has navigated his career and gotten to where he is professionally today. So, a little bit about Piyush before we jump into this conversation. So, Piyush Kumar is a data scientist who enjoys playing with new technologies and identifying possible use cases in the real world. He's an engineer by qualification who turned to data science by nature of curiosity. He has experience in finding insights in data using statistical, inferential, and predictive analytics. He's proficient in taking a machine learning project to production using Python. Apart from that, Piyush Kumar really enjoys implementing leading edge statistical methods to structured data sets. With regards to his education, he has a BE in Electronics and Telecommunication from the University of Mumbai and a Masters of Science in Analytics and Data Science from Georgia Institute of Technology. He is currently based in Singapore and works as a senior data and AI specialist. So, Piyush, thank you for making time for this. I really appreciate you taking out this 1 hour in your workday to share your journey and maybe reflect on some of the things you've experienced. But before we go into your professional journey, I'm just curious about what were you like as a student growing up in India, if I may correct that. So, what was your journey at school like, and what were some of the things you were curious about at
So my childhood is very typical boy born in Mumbai, brought up in Mumbai. There really isn't, much different that I could see between what I went through and what my friends went through as kids. It mostly revolves around Mumbai. We as a family never traveled outside Mumbai. Uh, as a kid, like we would go out for tours or something like that, but not really like we the whole life was in Mumbai. I would segregate my life into three parts. The first part was up until the age of 6, 7, around that, where I was living in a slum. So I have heard stories from my mom and dad that it was very humble beginnings, and they started with walls that were not concrete. It was really like sheets of metal. They came here as immigrants from Rajasthan, and as immigrants, they were really bold, right, and really hopeful that they are going to make it in Mumbai. Um, when I have memories from that place, and it was all concrete walls. We had 2 floors, and it was all my memories come back with like very kind people, very supportive people, always there to help us out. And I really made lifetime friends there. I remember playing on streets. I remember there was a banyan tree right outside my home, and everyone would gather there in the evening. It was Mumbai, but it yeah, that Mumbai is different now. So when I go to the same place now, it's so different. The second part of that is when we moved to, I would say, a bit uptown, not really uptown, but a little better society. It was still it wasn't still an apartment in a building. We were still in a chawl, but that chawl was quite different. We had a registered society. The people were different, and this was my first exposure to people using English as their first language. So I studied in English school, but that was really only at school, right? No one at my home was speaking in English, and we moved place. So I'm a kid. I come to this place. I see people talking in English, small kids my age talking in English to their parents, and they are living their life with that language as as the first language. And Hindi was not as common, which I was using a lot. Marathi was something that I was using, but that was not common. So that was, I would say, my first, I would say, culture shock. But I was a kid, so there was not really a shock. But it took me some time to adjust to that. But that was also the first time I remember I got my first remote car there, remote control car, my bicycle, my first video game station, PlayStation. And you can see, like, when we started in Mumbai, we didn't have much. And then around like 8th standard, I already have a PlayStation. So, we as a family grew, and that was really my experience. Like, I'm quite, uh, I have that experience built into me, like having nothing and moving from nothing to having a lot. And that learning, I cannot really put into words like what that means. What what I do remember is every time I have to go out, every time I'm making a decision, or my mom and dad are making a decision, they're thinking about future. Like, what does that mean for next year? What does that mean for next 2 years? Not just about money, but almost about everything. So that was really, really, really uh, my childhood. Like, the first 2 parts of my childhood was me being a kid. When I was like in ninth standard, we moved to a building in a society, in an apartment. And that's where this very, very open world, where no one cared about who you were, what background you came from, what religion you belong to, suddenly shut down.
Mm.
Like, you are only looking at your parents every day. There is a society, there are people downstairs, but they don't know you, and they don't really care. Like, when I moved to my chawl apartment, friends would come to me and they would ask me out, and we did the same for anyone new who was moving in. But this was different. So again, something new that was happening. But the second time around, I think I really closed up, and I moved to my world of computers. This was the place where, like, I was not going out a lot, and I was discovering the world, like the digital world. So I was having experience to my first computer, access to first internet, building my first website, all of that. And this was still before my college days. So yep, that's essentially my story of childhood.
That's really inspiring, Piyush. And sometimes I wonder because our parents, they go through their own journey, and unconsciously their journey also influences our journey. We see their way they evolve as individuals, as professionals. So it's so inspiring to see how your parents build that life for themselves, and also you were able to build on that to create the life that you wanted for yourself. And one thing I'm really curious about, Piyush, is that I know you are someone that was very entrepreneurial from a very young age. You know, while you were in university, I noticed that you also worked on a couple of businesses. As I noted here, one was homeforgeeks.com and Zorave, if I'm saying that right. But like, what was that university time like for you, when you were doing your bachelor's of engineering in electronics and telecommunication, and also working on these businesses? So what was your time, what was that life like for you?
So my university life really was, I would say, like the peak time of professional and knowledge and curiosity. I was really having the first taste. Like, it was not really first. The first taste of independence, going out alone in the world, was around 10th standard. I got my first mobile then, so I'm really just out in the world, right? I'm using public transport in Mumbai, in the bus, going out. I'm coming back at night. So that was the first taste of independence. But during my university days, I was going a long distance, 13 kilometers away from home. I was when I left home in the morning, I knew that I'm not coming back till night, because that's how the schedule was. And I planned my day according to that. It was really I was really occupied throughout the day. Like, when it was the first year, I would start my day in the first half with classes. So I used to go to a tutor so that I could pass my 11th and 12th standard exams. After that, I would take a train, go to my college, which was Thakur College. If you know, it's in Kandivali in Mumbai. So I'd take a train to Kandivali, take a sharing rig to the college, reach the college, have some breakfast, and then attend my classes. lectures there, and from there I would again go to a third class, which was for my interest. This was really my interest, and this was for computers. I would go to these computer classes that ends at 9 o'clock, take a train back to home. So it was always like leave at 6, reach back home at 10. And this happened for almost 2 years, 11th and 12th. I, even though like I was so occupied, it's surprising that half, like when I was already in December of my 12th standard, I discovered, wait, CET is only for Maharashtra colleges, and you have to actually appear for GATE, which is very, very different if you want to go to like other colleges outside the state. And that just reflects onto the fact that I was only engaging with folks mostly from Mumbai, and almost all of us, the entire friend circle, was surprised that, oh my God, we didn't really prepare for it. And 6 months is not enough. But yeah, thankfully, all of us got into good colleges after that. That was like 11th and 12th. After 12th, I realized I was really wasting the really important part of my day, like the morning part of my day, into these tutors. So I go to tutors, they teach me something. I come to college, they again teach me something. And then I go to my computer classes. That was the only thing that was interesting throughout my day. And that was the only place I was really focusing. The rest of the day, I was just going through, like, it was a thing that I go through. It's just the motions that I'm making, and I'm just ticking things off my checklist. It was not really something I'm doing. When I was there in the computer class, I was really moving. I was really making things happen. I was building a website. I was learning JavaScript. At a point, I reached a state where I was assisting my instructor to teach other students in the class. So that was the place where the entire day paid off. I realized that in my engineering, I made a deal with my dad. I won't go to my tutors in the morning, but I promise you I will score well. I promise you I won't do the bad things that every parent, just in the negative perspective imagines if your kid is going out in the world and is not focusing on studies. So I promise that. And that was a very difficult conversation. But my dad comes from, entrepreneur in me is really inspired from him. So he started at nothing, and I have seen him grow from nothing to what he's now, and what he made the entire family. So I just made a deal that you're going to invest X money into that tutor, and I have to invest so much amount of time there. Let's make a deal for one semester. I don't go there, and in return, you give that money to me. Let me take a responsibility. I'm growing up, so let me take a responsibility there, right? Let me take a responsibility that I take care of my studies. If I want to invest that, I'll go to them last month of these studies, and they will accept that money, right? So just give it to me. So of course he didn't really give that money to me, but he promised that I will have access to it once the scores are out. So that was like the first deal of my life, and I did score what I promised him. It was not, I didn't really I was never a class A student. I was always, I would just make it past the I would just make it past the cutoff always. So I promised that I'll score 60% in engineering. In the first semester, I made it at 63%. And I got a bike. I got a bike for that. I took that, there was some spare cash. I took that money, and I had that spare cash, some 10,000 odd bucks. And this is where my side hustle starts. Like I met someone called Sumit. He's a very good friend of mine up until now. I met him when I was in Thakur in 11th standard. He and I discovered that our curiosity into technology, into mobile phones, into computers, into how the internet works is not so common. There are friends we have who really want to listen to us, and there's only so much we can do when we are meeting them. There's a lot more to do if we can write stuff down, if we can write and distribute. And what if we use our knowledge to do that? So we started a blog together, homeforgeeks.com. And that is how it started, like how to articles on how to use your Android phone, how to use your laptop, how to simply log into your DSL or the old internet networks.
Mm.
That's all. And that really like grew, and we can I can talk about it if required. It occupied a major part of my university days, the 4 years in Thakur College. um, in college, in class, in the university, I was an absent student. So I still remember, and if this professor sees this video, he will really remember it. So um, the there was a professor who was very famous to call parents in and punish, and not really punish, but he would say that you have to attend your class up to like 70% attendance or 80% attendance. And I talked to him in the start of the semester. This is the first semester, first year, and I say, sorry, sir, I cannot make it. I cannot make that attendance because so and so I'm doing these other things, and I have to be there. And he's like, not accepted. And that's all he said to me. And I was not there in the class. I was not there. And when the exams came around, he says, you have to call your father. So I called my father and like, all right, I'll call my father in. My father came in and said, he explained the situation, and he said if he doesn't attend, then he cannot score. If he cannot score, then he will not pass, which means the college gets a bad reputation, the student gets a bad reputation, and he might not even get a job. My dad says, which is why I got him here into this college. I want him to get a job and I want him to study. So it is really your problem, not my problem. And the professor was like, you have to do something. And he said, yeah, I've done my job. It's to get him into this college, and I pay the fees annually. So that my dad was like, this example was the rock solid support that my dad was during the initial days. He was always there to support me with my side hustles. Of course, there was always the asterisk, the term and conditions that you have to make it beyond the score that you promised me. That was always there. So right outside the college, when he stepped out, he said, Piyush, that was a worrying conversation with your professor. Are you sure you're going to pass it? And I said, yeah, I'm going to pass that exam. Are you sure you're going to make it beyond 60%? Yes, I'm sure. Okay, then do as you like. He cannot really expel you if you score the marks. So that was me, like completely absent in the engineering college. But that didn't mean I was not making friends there. I'm really happy to say that I have made lifelong friends there, and these were friends without whom I wouldn't even be an engineer. Like the studies was really just me in a room uh, at the night, burning my night oil to pass the exams. But it was really the friends who I was reaching out to at night, at like odd times. When they were in the lectures, they would just step out of the room and take my call because they knew Piyush isn't here, but he needs me, and they were just always there to help me out. And I don't know if I paid back that debt ever, but without them, I wouldn't be an engineer and I wouldn't be where I am. So I just, I really got lucky with the kind of people that I was surrounded with. I honestly think the entire life, I can really see that happening throughout my life, that I was really surrounded by very, very kind and good folks.
I remember reading like a reflection post you put up, I think last year, about the during the pandemic, how a lot of your colleagues from your master's course, your professional colleagues, were really supportive in helping you and your family, navigate that period. And I feel like that's a more recent example, but it's really interesting to see how you were leaning on your friends and family at this time, and you know, not just your coursework. But at this time, were you also always interested in engineering and computers? So while your coursework was going, on like what were some things you were doing in your free time to learn about, electronics or computers? Were you taking additional courses? Was that something you were interested in, like at that time, or?
So that this is the interesting bit. I wasn't really when I was in 12th standard, I wasn't ever interested in becoming an engineer
Hmm.
at heart. And even I think now I'm more a people person than an engineer. And I wanted to become a doctor because my memory is, who wouldn't want to be? He's a person who helps you when you need him. He or she is kind, always sweet. Uh, there are people always like throughout the day queuing at their door so that because they need their help. So I wanted to be a doctor, um, because it was not because I was really good at it. I don't think I was ever good at any of the subjects that I was attempting at, but because it really looked like a way to help out people. And I couldn't do that for various reasons. I couldn't take that route. I took the CET exam. I got into engineering. I got into electronics and communication engineering, which was really far, far away from my interest area, at least in the technology space. In technology space, I was interested in comms, but I didn't score enough to make that cut. But my learning really happened because I was meeting and talking to people. That's how I learned. So the first time I got exposed to computers was in 7th or 8th standard. I don't know if you know about this institute called as NIIT. They came into my school. They ran a test or exam and they gave out scholarship. I scored the top on it. And yeah, probably this is an example where I scored top. I scored top and I got full funded course on website development, if I remember well. So I was able to learn website development there. And that started the point of curiosity about, what more is possible in this box that runs on electricity.
Hmm.
And that's where I learned about internet. As time went by, that curiosity kept on increasing. When I got my first computer, I started. It sounds funny now, but I started like loading songs and videos and helping people copy images across. Um, and that's where I started making money as well for the very first time using my knowledge. When we started Home for Geeks, um, it was not just the how-to guides that were famous. It was really like the device reviews that started becoming famous.
Hmm.
We were getting invited to launch events from LG, from Samsung, any consumer electronic you can imagine. They were inviting us to their launch events, and they were asking pointed questions on who who is your target audience on the website.
Hmm.
And to be very honest, Sumit and I were there, and it was so new to us. They were like, target audience, what does that even mean? What does that even mean? So we will go back. And the first time this happened was we were at a D-Link event in Taj in Mumbai. We really were so excited and scared because it's the first event we are attending. It's at Taj. Like it's kind of a big thing just to be invited there. And then you're being asked this question like, who is your target audience? And we answered what we answered back then, but then we went back to the drawing board. We tried to research what does that mean, and we discovered a world of analytics there.
Hmm.
Like, you have Google Analytics. You can understand who's reading what, how much they are reading, what they are interested in. And we just took that knowledge, started building upon it, and one arm of Home for Gigs became a research arm just to give insights to these organizations. So we would create reports and send out to them and say the customers are currently interested in this, which slowly became the customers probably would be interested in that in future, in next 1 year, in next 2 years. That's what they would like to see. And I remember one of the organizations built this device, which was allowing the mobile phone owners to replace their batteries easily. They were discussing whether replaceable batteries would be make or break. Should we remove these functionality and save money? And we were there in the room, and we said it won't be a make or break based on our research. And they decided to go with it. Like, it was not just us, of course. There were some other organizations as well who were doing these kind of consumer research. Uh, but it was really interesting to see the impact that research was making. And that was on the analytics side, right? On the other hand, we were getting invites to build websites for other people. Like, when we did Home for Gigs, we also built the website for our own college fest, and that was the best like college website for the fest, I guess, in Mumbai. Because after that, we got invited from Atharva, Mithibai, IIT, like almost all organizations. Can you build it for us? And we did that. So we were learning, as we were doing this, we knew that people want to see new things. If one college fest website had this functionality, a slider on the top bar, then someone else needs something else. So we were just doing what was asked by people who we were meeting, and we were learning. We were just trying to bridge that gap. That's essentially like during my university days. Uh, after after my university, I studied XORAVE, which was really non-techie based website. The whole and sole goal was targeting like high net worth individuals to sell imitation, not, yeah, we call it imitation jewelry, but not precious jewelry, for especially for special events like parties and stuff. I was sourcing it from designs from Brazil, from Africa, from Southeast Asia, and getting those built in China and importing that product from China and selling in India. I remember the biggest marketplace for me was eBay at that time, which reminds me how old that thing has, that XORAVE initiative was. The the learnings there were really on research, understanding customers, understanding where the demand was coming from. So it was really the curiosity, right? I was making money, but I was just trying to understand, where was I making money from? Is it the tier one cities? Is it tier two? And the discovery there, like, as I kept drilling down, as I kept going into the details of why this is working, why is it working like this? Can I prod it? Can I tweak it? Can I make it work like I want it to? That's what led to like my learning experiences. A lot of what I have learned is based on that. I did courses as and when I found like there's a gap that I need to fill, and it is not possible to do it by myself. I did courses. I have studied at NIIT, my data science, even though I did analytics a lot before doing my data science course. I did a Udacity course. That was my first exposure to data science structured learning. And after that, I did my master's quite recently, because again, I think that there was a gap that I had to fill in my knowledge, and I had to find a course that was answering that gap. So my learning was always more focused on what I need rather than what the world expects me to know, or what the world is like rewarding today.
Interesting. So you were sort of learning new things based on what you needed at a particular point in your sort of professional journey, right? And so, Piyush, like after you graduated from your B, like did you start working immediately? What was your early professional experiences like? Like how do you get a job after you graduate from engineering college in India? And what kinds of jobs did you apply for? And what was your experience in those first jobs?
Okay, very very interesting question on how do you get a job after engineering. So one thing I believe I discovered was, you should not try to get a job after engineering. You should really try to find a job by the time you are in your second year of college. Even if it's not a job, you should at least try to get a taste of it. Try to find an internship or something. Since I was working at Home for Geeks, me and Sumit, both of us had an experience of what the real world looked like, what they were expecting of us, and we knew at that time the gap between what we were taught in college in class and what the world was expecting, and how huge that gap was. I didn't have to really find a job. I've never job hunted, apply to companies during my college days. What happened was, as part of running Home for Gigs, we met so many people, and so many of them really just offered us a place in their organization. So one was at a advertisement media firm in Navi Mumbai, who simply offered a place. Again, this was really just two people talking, right? It's not really like a proper interview or anything. He just said, before you graduate, think about joining this place. There's always a place for you. There was another at an architecture firm. So this guy is running his own architect firm, but he's planning to scale up, and he wants to leverage social media. He wants to leverage digital, and he wants to be tech savvy as an architect, and he wants to attract that crowd. So he said, join me. And I got an offer letter from Accenture as part of like the college. What do you call in-house placement. I got a letter from Infosys, and I think, again, I was never a class A student. My 4-year engineering average is 60.06, barely crossing what I promised my dad. Barely what these institutes expect out of you to score. So I think the reason I was able to get a letter was, they saw that there were so many other things that I was doing apart from studies. Um, that there was always an option to continue Home for Geeks, which we did, like Sumit and I did. But as soon as I joined Accenture, the life took a turn. Now I did not have the freedom to spend my entire day on a side hustle, like I was doing in the college days. So the day became my job, and the night became the side hustle. So that changed. But yeah, really, that is how my first job came about. And my advice is, you should really start in second year of your career. Like, if you plan on doing masters, then that's also something that you have to start around, when you're in your second year. Like, I want to do masters, this is the area I want to go to, and you can start preparing for it.
Very interesting. Yeah, because I think that's like the normal path. Like a lot of people, they would opt for a master's degree, and then it takes about a year or two to really apply and get everything, in place. But a lot of people also opt for some professional experience so that they
Mhm.
understand like what field they want to specialize in before maybe going for sort of an advanced degree. But for you, like working in a company like Accenture, which is one of the big four, like as a new graduate, like was it like a little like nerve wracking, how they train you, what kind of jobs you get, because it's such a large organization. So how do you find your voice and place in such a large organization, and what job were you doing at that point, right out of your BE in electronics and telecom?
Yeah, Accenture is really one of the good ones in the big four, based on my experience. And again, this is because I was really surrounded by really good people, really kind people in that organization. My my first day in Accenture, like in a project, right? The initial days are always training, but the really first day, I remember that day when I joined the project. It was in Airoli. I joined the project. I was just, I just given an address, which is like your bay number and your desk number and something like that. I received on email. So I go and find in this huge floor, there's a small bay, and I open the door, and there's just one lady and no one else. And I was surprised because I reached at 8 o'clock. I was told the work timings are 8 to 6, if I remember well. So I reached at 8. It's my first day. I go in and there's just one lady in there. I meet her and I ask, is this the right address? Am I at the right place? And she says, yes, you need to occupy that desk. I ask, like, who is my manager? And she says, yeah, you don't really have a manager right now, but you will report to me. As I asked her name, and I realized that I'm reporting into someone like at director level, wherein I should actually have like 4 people between her and me.
Wow.
And by the end of the day, I realized there's really no one in the project except 2 of us,
Okay.
and the rest team is in US. So, so I start my day like that. The next day, I'm told that I have to learn a new application. It's called Galaxy, and I have to learn this from someone sitting in US. He will talk to you every day for next 2 weeks for 1 hour, and you have to just note it down. And that's called a knowledge transfer.
Mm.
I thought, okay, what do I do with this knowledge, right? I'm noting things down, I'm recording, and then they said, you take over his job. That's what it is for. Like, okay, wait, didn't you just say that guy has 18 years of experience? Like, yeah. But it's a very simple job. You just have to test that application. It's not out of the world. And I realized when I started meeting that person, I realized it's the job is really not the application, but the knowledge of the insurance domain. Like, how does a policy work? How does underwriting work? What to expect in each of those stages? And no one was telling me that. So it was as nerve wracking or as surprising, as you can think of it. Like, you are new, you are taught in your training, you were taught that you will receive an Excel with steps in it, like click this button, click that button, and you have to simply update whether what you did and what came out of the app was as per expectation. That was what I was taught. And I go to the job and they're saying, you're taking over a job from someone who's like 18 years of experience. And within the first few weeks, I realized I'm never going to receive that Excel sheet that was promised.
Oh,
I'm supposed to build up that Excel sheet
yourself.
and put in my expectations based on the client requirement,
Wow.
test it, and then say whether it was as per expectation, like passed or failed. So yeah, it was crazy. But again, I was only able to do that because I got the support that was needed. So the senior, the director who was in the project extended a lot of support. As soon as I requested for resources, she let out resources, books, trainings, everything. So I had to find myself, right? That discovery was mine. Like, what do I need to learn? What is missing here? What do I need to know to perform this job? But then the team around me was supportive. For an entire year, my team leads would keep changing because it was a new project. So no one liked how it was. It was really, really gruesome. Like, you were expected to take over work from people who had more and more experience than you. Same was the case for team leads. They were taking over work from someone, who had more experience than them. So no one liked that. I stayed on, but that was a very good learning curve, learning exercise for me. I learned a lot about people. I learned a lot about technology. I learned a lot about consulting.
Mm.
What exactly does it mean for Accenture to go out there and say, we are going to do this for you?
Mm.
And when they promise, what are they willing to bet on it? So I really learned about these things, like how these big institutions work.
Wow. Yeah.
But there was always, when I completed the testing bit, there was space for me to experiment. And that's where, again, the curiosity, right? If I'm doing it like this, is there another way to do it? And I just learned that there is another way. Out of curiosity, I learned automation testing. I implemented automation testing. And that's how, like, it really is the story of my life. Like, just out of curiosity, start doing something, learn, implement, learn and implement and keep doing that loop again and again.
Hmm. Yeah, and I feel like that is like one of your defining traits, Piyush, is that you are learning like on the go. And I feel like that is like one of the most important skills you can have in today's day and age, because technologies are changing so rapidly, jobs are changing so rapidly. I feel like you had this ability to learn new things and reskill and upskill while you were learning on the job. So I think that's a very crucial sort of insight that you shared there. So you were at Accenture for about 3 to 4 years, right, Piyush?
Yes,
And
that's right.
then you were working at Empani as a data scientist. So, that shift from working in a big four company to Empani, which is also a reasonably large company. So, what was that shift like, and when did you opt to take up an advanced degree, like in that sort of, I think it was about 5 to 6 year period between 2014 to 2020, and I think you started your degree very recently, 2021. So, what was that 6 year period like for you? From like 2014 to about 2020, like your later years in Accenture and then starting off in Empani. Hi, Pierre.
I dropped off.
No worries, no worries. It'll just continue from
Yep,
wherever.
you were asking me about what was it like moving from Accenture to Empani, right?
Correct, yeah. Like, and why did you make that shift? What kind of skills you were trying to pick up at that point?
Okay, so that was a very big change for me. Are you able to see me? Because I can't see you.
Okay, I can see you and I can hear you as well, Piyush.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So um, Accenture to Empani was a very big change. Empani back then was hardly 20 people, hardly 20 people in the organization. Out of that, less than 10 in the technology space. So that was a really big change. The reason I wanted to make that change was twofold. First, I was a bit bored with what I was doing in Accenture after 2 years. I wanted to do more with technology, and of course, there was the third reason, which is I don't think I was paid well after 2 years there, but that's a different story. The driving force really was I wanted to do more, I wanted to learn more, but my project started becoming a bottleneck for that. I did automation testing, I did DevOps there, I did so much learning, and I like that taste, right? It's like you can do so much more and you want to do it. So I started learning about what is out there. I studied crypto, I studied data science as part of that. And I really got a lot of support. Again, people around me. I was reporting to someone called as Dheeraj, who's a very good friend of mine. He's the most kind and most helpful person I've ever met. So he provided all the support I needed to ensure that I was able to learn data science while I was doing that job at Accenture. Um, it is at this time when I did the Udacity Nanodegree. I don't know if that is even possible now, but Udacity had this data science Nanodegree back then, which I did. That propelled me to clear interviews in multiple organizations, and I chose to join Empani. Empani was a very small firm trying to do good, um, trying to help people by analyzing the data that they're getting from multiple sources. I talked to the team there, and I really liked the team, so I joined. The biggest shift was instead of Accenture like organization with infinite resources, I'm moving into a team with hardly any resources.
Hmm.
So everything I do has to come from me myself. So I cannot rely on courses from them. I cannot rely on um, extra hardware resources or anything like that.
Got it.
Um, even but the again, I think the biggest thing was, and I keep repeating this, but the biggest thing was the team there was amazing.
Yeah, and like I think that's nice because you got a glimpse of what it's like to work in a big four organization and what it's like to work in a smaller organization and learning in both these things. But I think at that time, the nano degree, and the MOOCs, like massive online open courses, were really, picking up. And it's nice that you were able to access that opportunity at that time. And, like once you were done with Empani, you started working for another company called Prudential Place, and you've been with them for about 6 to 7 years now. And I'm just curious about how you moved from being a data scientist to an AI specialist. Or, like, can you help anyone that's listening to this understand what is data science? How is it different from computer science or computer engineering?
Okay, sure. So the first question I get is, I moved from Empani to Prudential,
Correct.
and how did that happen?
Yeah.
So that happened out of a hackathon in IIT Powai. I met my I met my boss, like to be boss in Prudential, into the hackathon, and we talked. And he said, "We are doing this crazy thing at Pru, which is transform the entire industry from this one organization." And he explained who were part of the team, and I love that pitch. I love that description, and I joined them. So Prudential, I joined because of the opportunity, like a very big opportunity to change how insurance is done in the industry.
Hmm.
Um, the the second question was, how is data science different from computer science, right?
Yeah, yeah. Like, how would you explain that to someone that wants to make that shift or that jump? Like, what are some things they would have to learn in addition to, let's say, they have like a foundation in computer science or a base like a foundational engineering degree. If they want to explore a career in data science, what are some additional skills they would have to acquire?
Okay, so I think th- there's a really easy way to explain this. If you can think of three circles, the business is one circle, the computer science or software engineering as one circle, and finally the machine learning as the third circle. Data science is really trying to bring these three people together, or
Mm,
three areas together, and generate value for the business. And this value could be in multiple ways. You could help them with insights. And insight could be, uh, you're running business in X form, and this is causing a specific result. That is an insight. If the business didn't already knew, most of the time business know what they're doing. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes you are also predicting, like if you do X, then the result could be Y, using your knowledge on business, a software, and machine learning.
mm,
So, like on high level, this is what data science is. But for someone who's trying to move from comp science background to data science, the biggest learning is in the fact that when you are doing software, when you're doing delivery of products, the product is your outcome. So you're measured on how good is your code, how good does the product function, does it conform to that specification that was given to you. And most of the time the business doesn't care, like is it in Python language or is it in R language or like JavaScript or anything, right? They only care about the final product, the final outcome.
mm,
When you move into data science, the data becomes your outcome. So what kind of data are you generating for from all the resources that you have, and what is the fit to the specification that you were offered. So if the business wanted to improve a particular KPI, then were your insights? Was your machine learning model able to provide any input or any support to move that needle?
Hmm.
So that is the shift from, computer science to data science in your mind. Technology perspective, you are already well versed with how to write code, how to build things. You would have to learn a few libraries like scikit-learn or PyTorch, LangChain, because GenAI is a big thing now. And you have to know you have to build your stats foundation. Most of the comp science courses in India already have advanced maths and stats as part of the course.
Yeah.
And when I say advanced, I'm really talking about calculus and differential as the most complicated part of it.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it's simply averages and medians and these kind of simpler calculations.
Hmm. Got it. Yeah. So, like, I think that's interesting that you've laid out what are some of the additional skills someone would like to or have to acquire. But in 2021, you decided to pursue a Master's of Science degree in Data Science and Analytics in the US. So, what was your experience in this course, Piyush? And was it an in-person course? Was it online? Because it was towards the end of the pandemic at that time. So how did you what did you learn in the course, and how did it help you in your career right now?
Okay, so the reason I did this course was I was working in Prudential on a app, and I was building. Um, I believe I was building very cutting edge recommendation engines
Mhm.
for digital app. It was used by millions of customers online, and I discovered that I I can do more if my knowledge about recommendation engines was more. Like I need to learn more about how what more can be done.
Hmm.
So I started digging into how recommendation engines are built, and there were like fabulous articles, fabulous research on it from Netflix, from Airbnb. Thank you to engineers there who are posting these amazing things out for us to learn from. And as part of that, I discovered the different gaps I had in my knowledge about data science. And these were really foundational to say. For example, when you run an A B test, how do you conduct a T test and how do you run an experiment? It seems very simple. It looks simple. I had conducted experiments before, but as part of this research about recommendation engines, I discovered there's a lot more to it than just simply running two variations,
Right.
and it is not as easy as I was thinking it to be. And this
Mhm.
was not just one area. I discovered uh, like there were multiple areas, and these only came about because self-reflection is a thing that I usually practice. So I discovered that these are the areas. I went out, I tried to find like which course or which particular resource would be good enough for bridging this gap that I have. And this course really fit well. I didn't want to leave my job at Pru to bridge that gap, because when you decide to leave your job to pursue additional studies, you have to consider the opportunity cost to do that for you.
Yeah.
And you also need to understand what is the kind of ROI you can expect from that, when you come out of that course.
Yeah.
So I evaluated multiple courses like MIT, Stanford, UCLA, and Georgia Tech came up because the learnings there were right, to the top. Like it was really, really one of the best top. If I remember, when I signed up, it was top 10
Wow.
amongst the top 10 institutes. But the course fees was, I think I paid 10K USD.
Hmm. Not
So
bad.
it is very unique. When I signed up, it was 10,000 US dollars.
Yeah.
But midway of the course, they said, "Oh, we are taking more money than we need, so we are going to reduce the cost," and they reduced the cost. So
Okay.
I didn't even pay 10,000 USD to them.
That's a reasonable cost for like a master's degree at and in that time, because I feel like if you And was this all in person or were you doing it virtually?
That was also important consideration for deciding which course I took.
Yeah,
This was online course, and I was doing it from the comfort of my home.
got it.
I was able to handle the big changes in my life. So I was in the course when I had my first baby.
Wow.
I was in the course when I moved back between Singapore and India twice. So during after the pandemic, when I was doing this course, I
Yeah,
took my family, moved to India. I took my family, came back here. So there's these two big trips was uh, was also during the course.
that's
So
that's
yes,
amazing. Yeah, I feel like for the last question, Piyush, thank you for sharing your journey. For anyone listening to this conversation, I will link Piyush's LinkedIn profile so you can understand his work better over there and connect with him and take this conversation forward there. It's very hard to cover everything in 1 hour, but Piyush was generous enough to share those stories and those insights in his journey. But Piyush, the last question is not related to your career. I know you have a beautiful, baby daughter who's like growing up very fast. So, what are some things you've learned about life, from being a parent and observing your child growing up that have helped you in your professional career as well?
there's there's a trove of learnings of having the first child. It's I think the very first learning for me was before I had my kid, work was really the center of my life. Everything, rotated around work. After having my kid, I think it's really my family that is the center,
Hmm.
and it is a very positive change. Um, Apart from that, being a parent is I think it's the I feel the weight of that responsibility on my shoulders. But it is really the best. It's as an engineer, you're really looking forward to build things,
Yeah.
but building a person, uh, seeing that person grow in front of your eyes, having the ability to kind of shape what that person is doing. It is an amazing power that you have.
Wow. Wow, and that's such a positive note for anyone listening about how they can balance their family and work life. So, Piyush, thank you again, for the time you have made for this interview. To respect time, we will have to cut this interview at this point, but Piyush is available on LinkedIn for, future queries for anyone young listening to this, that's interested in how he upskilled. I highly recommend following him on LinkedIn. I've really enjoyed reading some of your posts on LinkedIn, Piyush, and I hope you get to continue sharing your reflection on your personal and professional journey. So, on that positive note, Piyush, do you have any final words to share, with a young person listening to this podcast?
Um, my final words would be you have to keep the curiosity like a child alive in you. When I see my daughter, I see how curious she is, always trying to try something new, see things with a new light. So keep that childlike curiosity alive in you. And Abhishek, thank you so much for having me here. I've been seeing your podcast on YouTube, and I really like the natural flow and the natural tone in those podcasts. Amazing work, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Piyush. Thank you so much. And on that note, we end this episode. Stay tuned for more such stories of amazing young people changing the world in their own unique context. And until next time, stay curious, as Piyush said, and keep learning.